Afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge we are in Treaty One territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. This afternoon, I'd like to introduce the panel members, and they joining us via Zoom is Brian Carlin and Adila Del Oro. Myself, I'm chairing this afternoon's hearing. My name is Mike Colotruglio. And the secretary this afternoon is Crystal Harlan. And the assessor for this afternoon's hearing is Mackenzie Omachinsky. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg Border Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to surmise if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 8 on our docket today, with the exception of item 4. Item 4 has been withdrawn. Ms. Harlan, would you please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, would you please state your full name?
Mackenzie Omachinsky.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Charlebois Page, would you please state your full name?
Stephen Charlebois Page.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we'll swear in Mr. Abbas just prior to item 2.
Item 2, fair
Yes.
enough. Thank you.
And I'll put him in the waiting room now.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Mr. Omachinsky, can we hear your presentation at 1030 Brazier Street?
Yes, thank you. So this is file number 24-1266, roll number 0203151000. Address is 1030, sorry, it was Brazier.
Fraser.
Brazier Street. Roll year 2025, reference date April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is 5,998,000. Classification 20, liability T. There's one building with 3 stories. The actual year built is 1964, and then the effective year built is 1979. We have 42 suites and 35 outdoor parking spots. We'll go to page 2 for subject sale history. There is no sale history for the subject property. On page 3, for number of units, we have 9 bachelor units, 24 one-bedroom and 9 two-bedroom units for a total of 42 units. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,089.77. The gross potential rent is $549,244. The vacancy rate is 2.6%. The expense rate is 43.38%. The net operating income is $302,897. The capitalization rate is 5.05%. And the estimated market value rounded is $5,998,000, with the market value per suite sitting at $142,809.52. We'll go to page 4 for the rent comparables. These rent comparables, the effective year built ranges from 1965 to 1980. The number of units range from 16 to 133. Number of bachelor units are 0 to 3. Number of one-bedroom ranges from 20 to 100. The number of two-bedroom ranges from 3 to 30. The average monthly rent per unit ranges from $919 to $1,220. I will go to page 5, which is the capitalization rate information provided by the city. Page 6, we have our capitalization rate evidence. The following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose of showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. On to page 7, we have Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and then 8, we have aerial photo of the property. This sits at the intersection of Brazier and Pleasant. Then there's a street view photo, and then on page 9, 10, and 11, there's some interior photos of the subject property. And 12 to 19, we have the income and expense reports and the rent roll. And that would be my presentation. I am open for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Charlebois Page?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So can I just confirm with you that the value presented today is model generated?
This is model generated, yes.
Okay, thank you. I did note that I think the parking is less than 1-to-1 on this property, parking stalls to unit. Do you agree that this would be a negative attraction to a potential investor?
Yeah, it's slightly less than the total number of suites.
Yep. Okay. So maybe I'll just take you to the cap rate chart, the model summary chart on page 5.
Yeah.
I note that sort of the brokerage firms have a range on low-rise stuff between 5 and 6%. You've chosen the model applied a 5.05% in this case. Do you think that this property built in 1964 should be at the bottom of that range? Do you think that could be a little aggressive for a property like this?
No, I would more look at the city of Winnipeg, the 20th to 80th percentile, where we have 4.75 for the 20th and then 5.45% for the 80th, and that sits kind of healthily in the middle. So I do believe that the model is accurate with the cap rate there.
But acknowledging the people that are selling these in the marketplace between 5 and 6, you'd acknowledge that that'd be at the bottom of their range. Is that a fair statement?
It would be at the bottom of their range.
Okay.
Near the bottom.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Avila, do you have any, sorry, Ms. Deloro, sorry, my apologies. Deloro, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I do not have any questions at this time, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlin, any questions for the assessor?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I guess the only question I'm going to ask, this is fairly typical of a slightly older apartment where parking doesn't go one-to-one on those properties, correct?
From what I've seen, yes.
So the older properties didn't have the necessity to have parking on a one-to-one basis, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Charles Page, may we have your presentation on this property, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have the subject property is a 3-story multifamily building built in 1964. There's 9 bachelor units, 24 one-bed, and 9 two-bedroom units. The current assessment is $5,998,000 in the residential class. I've set aside the cost and sales comparison approach, focused in on the income approach, which begins on page 13 of my report. The inputs that are included in my report are based on the actuals. There's some differences you'll note between the top end and the bottom, and some of sort of the expenses between the current assessment models and ours. The end of I guess the NOI, the end goal, they're relatively close. I think I know there's about less than a $2,000 difference in NOI, but I'll just state them for the purposes of today's presentation. So I'm applying a $493,062 or $978 per unit based on the 2020 actual potential gross income. It's larger than the 3-year average, which was $484,666. And applying an expense adjustment of 40% of that EGI, which is an adjustment of $203,720. These inputs are on page 16 of my report, if you're following along. My NOI is at 304,553 there, line item 33. My capitalization rate I've applied in this case is a 5.5%. I've attached a separate study, which includes multifamily capitalization rates. There's information in there in regards to the macroeconomics, sort of the situation affecting interest rates, borrowing costs as we approach the April 1st, 2023 valuation date. The study is comprised of 6 sales used to determine our cap rates for multifamily assets. That's on page 12 of that study. The range of those sales is between 5.26 to 7.11%. In my report, you'll see on page 14, I've stratified the assets into different age ranges, and the range there is between 5.5 to 6.25% for the 1970 to 1989 assets. I've applied a 5.5 in this case. My proposed revised value is $5,537,000, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Omnitsky, do you have any questions for our applicant this afternoon?
None at this time, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions?
No questions. I think basically everything's pretty comparable between the two. It seems like the cap rate is really the differentiating point on the valuations.
Yeah, like I sort of mentioned at the top, there's some different inputs, but the shakedown of it all to the NOI is they're under $2,000 difference. The difference is about a half point dispute in cap. You'd have that correct.
Perfect. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Deloro, do you have questions at this point?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And my question's been asked and answered, so thank you very much. Any final summation on this, gentleman?
Mr. Chair, I did enter rebuttal evidence.
Oh, okay. My apologies. So would you like to address that right now then?
Yeah, and with respect to everyone's time, I've entered it on every property. If I could just provide like a 2-minute summary on that and
Perfect.
have that carry forward to all the properties today, that would be my preferred method
Please
to
and
go
thank you.
forward.
Continue on, please.
Oh,
Mr. Chair,
Oh, sorry.
I don't recall any rebuttal evidence. That's,
well, let's
Actually,
make
there's
sure.
a
is
cap
there
rate
some?
study. Is that not the cap rate study that you're referring to, sir?
No, I submitted it to the BOR inbox at pre-hearing. Can I forward this email to you, Crystal?
Yes, please. If you can send it to my actual email address, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
Applicant. I don't
And
know.
I've included the original under it.
Okay, thank you. Just let me check, Mr. Chair.
Yep, please and thank you. Sorry, I thought you were speaking of your cap rate study. My apologies.
No, and if, yeah, okay, I'll just, let's,
We'll sort it out.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything in there, so. Okay, just a moment.
I could also provide it verbally because it's just a response to the city's assessment cap rate. So there's nothing, it's just a visual reflection sort of that material. So if worse comes to worse, I could just provide it verbally.
Maybe receive it first. Let's get that out of the way.
You said you sent it, Mr. Charlebois Page?
Yep. So I sent it first to the BOR at winnipeg.ca, and then I've just sent it over to you. There might be a little delay. I sent it about a minute ago to your personal there, K Harland at Winnipeg.
Right. Okay, it'll come somewhere.
Yep. Let's give it a moment. I prefer to look at it visually.
It's fine with me. So I just found it. My apologies for not seeing that earlier. I am going to put that into your files. Mr. Chair, it's uploading to the panel's OneDrive files.
Okay,
And I will send it to the assessor right now.
thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question as well. I
Go
also
ahead.
submitted some rebuttal evidence that would have been sent over my lunch period. That would have been at 12:31. I'm able to forward it directly to your email if needed.
Would you please do that, Mr. Assessor? I'm
Yeah,
sure
of
it's in
course.
the BOR inbox, but
Just give me one moment.
And apologies if I spoke out of turn there. Would it be the assessor's turn to do his rebuttal before mine? I don't want to jump out of turn with that.
No, it is applicant first and rebuttal and then the assessor, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Not a problem.
and Mr. Chair, I'll send
Goes along, yes.
the assessor's rebuttal as well.
Okay.
Do you have your rebuttal now? Does everybody have the
Already.
rebuttal?
Yep, I've just received it. Oh, sorry. That was not.
We got it yet, Chris. Sorry. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, just give me a second, please.
Yeah. So suffice to say that both your rebuttals this afternoon are going to kind of cover off the balance of the properties today, gentlemen.
Correct, yes.
Absolutely. I'm perfectly fine with, Mackenzie and I have done this, I guess, on a couple dockets where we can do this off the top and then proceed forward.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
I apologize, I'm having a little bit of issues with the email. It's saying it's not being delivered. I believe I have the email correct. It was copied from a previous email that you had sent. But let me see. Okay, I'm gonna try this again.
I have Mr. Charles Page's rebuttal,
Yes,
so thank you.
and, okay, and I will put in, the assessors.
Please and thank you, if you have it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a few more moments and we'll continue on.
I resent the applicant's rebuttal to you, Mr. Assessor.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully you'll receive it.
Yeah, I have it. Thank you. I have it open here in front of me.
Does everyone have the documents now in terms of my
We
rebuttal?
have yours, sir. We're waiting for the assessors at this moment.
Okay.
Just bear with us for a few more moments. We will sort this out. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. So I'm sending it to the Crystal Harland at winnipeg.ca, but it's saying it wasn't found.
Okay, don't worry about that, Mr. Assessor. I have the rebuttal that you sent.
Oh, okay. Okay, wonderful.
Okay, so you're good.
Yeah.
Hopefully you have what I sent you.
Yeah, I
Mr.
do.
Chair, I've just uploaded the assessor's rebuttal to the OneDrive file, and I'm going to put it into the hearing evidence for board members. Should be there right now. It's called
It appears it just popped up.
Altus 2025 cap rate study sales analysis,
Okay, see that?
and I'll send it to,
That is the cities.
yes.
Okay.
And I just sent it to Mr. Charlotte page. So I think we're good now. Everybody has it.
If you could just let us know when you've received it, sir.
I think I'm familiar with the document, but I'll wait until this copy comes through.
I'm sure, and then once you've received it, we will have your rebuttal for the information you've provided this afternoon, so please keep us posted. It's snowing.
Look at this.
Okay, I've just received it and we are good to go.
Then I'd ask for your rebuttal to be put forward at this point, please. Thank you.
Perfect. So as I said, I won't speak too long on the document. It's sort of in response to the assessor's chart, not in relation to the one that they provided with the model inputs, but sort of the one in support of those inputs. So again, the first few pages are going to sort of speak to that macroeconomic effect. The income approach to value is, at its heart, a reflection of investment math. One of the inputs into it is borrowing rates, and there's noted that the 4.5% borrowing rate at the time of the valuation date of April 1st, 2023. At the time you get a GIC for 4.5% there, I think that's on page 3, sort of stating that, if that's an input into, if it's a component of a capitalization rate calculation, why would you take on a depreciating asset that has tenants? It has, certain other, headaches, call them, when you can get a government insured investment at 4.5%. Moving on, you've got page 4. We touch on 2 sales, which would be 727 and 241. 727 Sargent and 241 Young. Those would be sales that I'd consider outside the normal range. When you see sales like that being calculated at 3% cap or 2% cap or some kind of anomaly, it's likely the person buying it is buying an alternative investment opportunity and not the income in place, and not the asset as it functions. And then lastly, there's lots of information on the sales in there, but I direct everyone's attention just to page 22, which has a summary of the city sale number 6, which is 677 Maryland at the top. The city is using the older sale in their study from December 15th, 2020. There is a more recent sale at March 1st, 2023, and the calculated cap on that would be 7.11%. And if using the city NOI from 2023, it'd be 6.2%. So those are just some of the things I'd like to highlight on there, and I'd like this evidence to carry forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. Questions at this point, Mr. Leminsky?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Deloro, do you have questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Carlin, questions?
No questions. Thank you.
I think I'm good in respect to what's been done, so thank you. Mr. Olszewski, can we have your rebuttal now with respect to information that's provided this afternoon?
Yes, so this is a City of Winnipeg rebuttal to the 2025 cap rate sales analysis. I don't believe that's been read in. I think it's been touched upon, but should I still do the rebuttal for?
Well, I think it would be best if you do it now. That way we can say we've had rebuttal by the appellant, and then we can say you've done the rebuttal to that rebuttal. So that way we can kind of move things along in the next properties.
Okay.
And Mackenzie, could I just clarify there? The cap rate study was submitted in support of all of these properties. So just for your knowledge,
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
You're absolutely correct. So sorry if we didn't mention that.
Oh yeah, no worries. All right. So this is the City of Winnipeg rebuttal to Altus 2025 cap rate sales analysis. Just goes over 5 sales of the for capitalization rate study. For sales 1 to 3, we have 1 year of income and expense information. I believe it's insufficient to calculate a stabilized net operating income. So we don't believe that's usable. Sale 4, there's no actual income or expenses involved in the calculation of net operating income, unusable. And then sale 5, we have potential gross income utilized by Altus is not based on historically reported information, so incorrectly stabilized. So we'll go to page 2, and it's just showing that there's only been 1 year of income and expense information, which would be insufficient for determining a cap rate. We were looking for more. We want 3 years. Then similarly on page 4 and 6. And then we would go down to page 9, which is the 100 Maryland Street. There's no actual data, so we don't believe that would be usable. And then on page 10, we have 2390 McPhillips Street. All this calculation average rents are inconsistent with the rents reported in the prior year. And then on 11, we just have a City of Winnipeg stabilization of 2390 McPhillips Street, which brings us to the capitalization rate of 4.71%. And that would be my rebuttal presentation. I am open for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Charles Page?
I'll just have one, a familiar one for Mackenzie. Could I just ask you, in regards to the sale 1 to 3, you noted that 1 year income and expense is insufficient. Can I just confirm with you that's not through the IAAO or the Appraisal Institute? That's not a standard that's recognized in the valuation community. Is it fair to say that's a City of Winnipeg standard for making it unusable?
This would be a City of Winnipeg standard. We would want 3 years, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions?
Nope, no questions at this time. Thank you.
And Ms. DeLauro, you have questions?
And I have no questions either, thank you.
And I guess the only thing that I will comment or to make question of, in your opinion, Mr. Almachinsky, the use of 3 years stabilized income and expenses when you come to calculate cap rates, does that, in your opinion, give you a more complete look at the cap rate?
Yeah, that would be a reason for doing the 3 years. We want like a solid amount of evidence or actual information to go off of when determining cap rate.
And do you feel that multi-year view does kind of smooth out the highs and lows of some of these
Yes.
properties?
Yes, I do.
Fair enough. Those are the sum total of my questions. So thank you, gentlemen, both. Is there any further summation on either party on this property, gentlemen?
I have none, thank you.
I have done as well, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so we will move along. Just bear with me for a moment while I close some pages down. We are on to item number 2. And this is with the gentleman that we have in the waiting room. Correct?
And I will let Mr. Wes Ashore in.
Okay.
Just-
So, Mr. Charlotte Page, do you want us to just put you in the waiting room, or you want to just hang around and wait?
I can just hang around and wait. I think for efficiency's sake, I can be on mute here and let you guys proceed.
Perfect, thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you maybe can just either speak up or turn your volume up a little bit louder, please, Mr. Applicant.
Okay, is that good now?
It's a wee bit better.
A little better, if you could, a little bit more, please, sir.
Okay, I'll try to speak louder. This is like my full volume for the computer.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Ms. Harlan, can we have him sworn in then?
Yes. Mr. Applicant, would you please state your full name?
Shar Abbas.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Robichinsky, can we hear your presentation on 1010 Brazier Street?
Yes, thank you. So this is file number 24-2850, roll number 0203025500. Address is 1010 Brazier Street. Roll year 2025, reference date April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $8,460,000. Classification 20, liability T. There's one building with 4 stories. The actual year built would be 1969, with the effective year being 1989. There is 62 suites with 48 outdoor parking spots. I do have a recommendation for this property, although it, upon further review, there will be a slight change to my recommended value. I can go over that after. So based on the stabilization that we can find on page 4, we will be recommending adjusting the assessed value to 6,718,000. And that would be based on adjusting the cap rate to 5.05%, and then the stabilized net operating income of $339,244.
And that was,
So yeah.
that calculation was done on what page, sir?
Sorry, so on page 4, we have the stabilized income and expenses, and it currently shows that the the capitalization rate is 4.95%, but I will be making a recommendation to do 5.05% instead, which would give us the new value of 6,718,000.
Of 6,718,000.
18,000.
Thank you very much, and that's using 5.05% cap rate, correct?
Correct, and then the stabilized net operating income.
And the NOI that you're using is 339,244, correct?
Correct, yeah.
All right. Mr. Abbas, are you familiar or are you aware that there was a recommendation?
There was an initial recommendation on the brief. I was aware of that, but the recommendation that Mr. Assessor has just given, I've just found out that recommendation. But regardless, we would be, with all due respect, we would be declining the recommendation and would like to proceed with the presentation. Thank you.
Fair enough. I appreciate your comments. So if you could continue with your presentation, that would be greatly appreciated, Mr. Olszynski.
Yes, thank you. So we'll go to page 2 now, just to show that there's been no sales history for the subject property. And then down to page 3, which we have the number of units. So we have 6 bachelor units, 41 bedroom units, and 16 two-bedroom units for a total of 62 units. And then we will go to page 5, where we have the rent comparables. So this, the effective year built ranges from 1965 to 1978. The total number of units range from 16 to 50. Number of bachelor would be 0 to 2. Number of 1 bedroom would be 7 to 31. Number of 2 bedroom would be 9 to 23. The average monthly rent per unit ranges from $1,006 to $1,143. Page 6 is the capitalization rate information. Then we have the evidence on 7 and the municipal assessment excerpts on 8. And then page 9, we have a aerial photo. This is the intersection of Brazier and Colvin. And then we have a street photo of the front of the exterior of the property. And then on page 10, we have just some information about the apartments, some suite and building amenities. And then from 11 to 13, we just have some in-suite photos. And on 14, we have a permit that was issued back in summer of 2012. This is a landlord improvement, so interior renovations to an existing 4-story apartment building. Work to include upgrading 58 suites, such as replacing carpets, kitchens, cabinets, toilets, kitchen sinks, flooring, and paint, and electrical would be included. This declared construction value is sitting at $218,780. And then on page 15, we just have the income statement for the property, and that would be my presentation. I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abbas, do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, I do. Mr. Assessor, my first question would be related to your valuation that was done by you on page 4. I'm seeing that it says an effective year of 1999 instead of the actual effective year of 1989. I just wanted to make sure that, were you using the 1999 effective year when you were calculating the value, or 1989?
It would be 1989. I think that might just be a slight, if you can zoom in, it should still read 1989. I know that it's in italics, so it might be a little bit more difficult to see, but that the effective year built, that is just to show there's no effect on the calculations done on page 4.
And I'd agree, that looks like a 1989. Though I could understand your confusion there if you look at it without zooming in really close. Looks
Yeah.
like, sorry.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to confirm on that.
No, absolutely, thank you.
My second question would be that did you consider, or the model is the model considering, or are you considering the original age of the property or the effective age of the property when you're deriving the value?
It would be considering both. The model would.
Okay. That's it. And then my third question would be regarding the parking. So there are 48 parking stalls and 62 suites for this property, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And would you not think that would be a deficit if the purchaser or an investor is looking at this building as an investment?
Yes, it may be in it. Yeah, it may be.
Okay, perfect. And then if I scroll down on the permit that you have put over here, sorry, just give me 1 second.
Please.
So this permit is from 2012, if I am not wrong, correct?
Yes, it is back to 2012.
And then this and the value of the permit and the work done would have already been considered in the following years of the assessment cycles, though.
Yeah, it would be. It would.
Okay, perfect. And then I might have one more question. I'm looking at your cap rate table on page 6, where I'm looking at the city of Winnipeg's 28th percentile and 80th percentile, and then I am looking at the brokers' cap rates. So if you look at multifamily low rise, the brokers are putting a cap rate range of 5 to 6%. And according to the brokers, this property, according to your cap rate, applied cap rate of 5.055 would be on the lower or the lowest end.
Yeah, according to the brokers, it would be on the lower end. I would point to the city of Winnipeg, where it's sitting kind of in the middle, between 4.75 to 5.45%.
Okay, but the city of Winnipeg's cap rate are further supported by the broker's cap rate, though, correct?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm just repeating this line on your on the same page on your third paragraph. It says that ATD capitalization rates are further supported by comparison with the real estate market reports from Colliers, CBRE, and Cushman.
Oh, yeah, yes, and they would be.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abbas. Questions, Mr. Carlin?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Del Oro, do you have questions?
My question was asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you give me just a moment, please. Your comparable rent comps on page 5, these are
Yes.
all in close proximity to the subject property, correct?
Yeah, they would all be in the neighborhood, the market region, sorry. And normally we look for the neighborhood. Sorry, these comparables being in the same neighborhood.
Correct. Just as a point of, might be helpful to have a map showing the subject versus the comparisons, just to give people a general idea. I know this because I know the streets around there, not badly, but enough to understand that these are in the general area of the subject, so.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I will.
It's somewhat helpful. And again, I guess it's the same question as before. It's fairly typical for an older property, not having one-to-one parking for each suite, correct?
Correct.
Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Abbas, may we have your presentation on this property, sir?
Yes, if you just bear with me for a minute.
Of course.
Should be quick. Okay, I'm good. Okay, so if you turn to page 2, we have a summary. We have a summary of some of the facts of the property, as well as our requested assessment, rounded off to 6,191,000. On page 6 and 7, we have attached some property maps and then some exterior photos on page 7, followed by a brief property description on page 8. The property was built in 1969 and is presently being used as a multi-family residential building. The subject property has a total of 62 units, including 6 bachelor units, 40 one-bedroom units, and 16 two-bedroom units. The total gross floor area is approximately 57,168 square feet, and there are reported 48 outdoor parking stalls. If you go to page 16, we have the overview of our income approach summary. Let me know when you guys are on page 16.
Thank you. I think we're all there.
Okay. So initially we were disputing the model applied rents and the income and the total expenses that were applied by the model, but I've looked at assessor's valuation that Mr. Assessor has provided in his brief, and we have noticed Mr. Assessor has rectified the differences that the model had. And based off that, when I'm looking at assessor's NOI and our NOI, there is only a difference of, I think, $1,200. So keeping that in mind and saving everybody's time over here, we would not be, I would not spend much time on the rents and the expenses. Both the parties are aligned on that. The topic of contention over here would be the cap rate. We are applying a 5.5% cap rate to city's 5.05, or Mr. Assessor's 5.05 cap rate. I have a brief cap rate summary table on page 14, 2 pages above that. So the subject property lies on our first table on page 14. If you look, the year built for the properties, the subject property is built in 1969, which is towards the end of the range, 1946 to 1969. And for that range, we are applying a cap rate of 5.75 and 6.5. So I've taken the cap rate of 5.75 from that range, and then I'm looking at the next range, 1970 and 1989. Because there's an effective age on this property as 1989. So I've taken both these ranges. I've looked at the lower cap rates of 5.75 and 5.5. And then there are certain other factors that I've taken into consideration, which are on the second table below. The property does not have any amenities. The property is in a fairly decent condition, keeping in mind that it's from 1969 and then there were renovations done. The parking is not an ideal mix for the parking. The ratio is less than 1:1. Suite mix, again, would be considered average. I would not consider the suite mix to be great. I would consider equal or just a little less number of difference between 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms for this property. The suite mix is 6 bachelors, 41 bedrooms, and 16 2 bedrooms, which gives us a total of 62 suites. So keeping all these things in mind, we've applied a cap rate of 5.5, and we believe that is fair and equitable for this property. And that would be my presentation. We have attached pictures of the property in our appendix, starting on page 20, 21, and 22 as well, if anybody would want to have a look at those pictures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nadas, for your presentation. Questions, Mr. Omachinsky?
I just have one quick question, just for building amenities. I know that says no amenities. And I had in my brief that there was, on their website, it showed that there was amenities. What would Altus consider to be amenities?
Yes, I can answer to that. I understand your question. I have attached that page as well. It's on my brief, it would be page 23, where they are putting building amenities. I should have been more clear when I say no amenities. I actually meant that there is no pool or no common area in the building or no gymnasium, these sort of amenities. The amenities that the property is marketing on their website is outdoor parking, public transit, schools nearby, laundry facilities. I feel like these are not amenities, outdoor parking, public transit, schools nearby. These are not building amenities, more like a society amenity or a neighborhood amenity. But that was my
Okay,
reason
thank
for putting it as no amenities. Yeah.
you. That would be all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. DeLauro, do you have questions for Mr. Abbas?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Farland, questions?
The only question I had, just to clarify, so with the city's kind of adjusted numbers, it would appear that NOI and everything is pretty comparable. So this, I think our real discussion point here seems to be a difference in cap rate alone, right?
Right. Yes, you're correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abbas, I guess I'm pointing to the building amenities. They go on to state 24-hour security, elevators, laundry facilities, no smoking allowed, on-site caretaker, and storage lockers. Are those not amenities that you would find in most decent apartments, sir?
Those will be the amenities provided in most decent apartments. Again, I should have been more clear when I said no amenities. I meant there was no like gymnasium or a gym
Right.
or a common area.
Yeah,
And then
that's a more modern thing, is it not, sir?
sorry?
That's a more modern take on apartment buildings these days, correct?
That would be correct. That would be correct. Yeah.
Fair
And
enough.
then just one more thing I would like to put out, just a small comment. It does say storage lockers, but these storage lockers, you would have to pay extra for them. These are not included with your rent.
Fair enough. I appreciate the additional comments, sir. Thank you. Now, with respect to the cap rates that you've pointed to and that Altus uses on page 14 of your brief, sir, again, these are not, are these cap rates that Altus has used and calculated on their own, or is this from outside sources, sir?
It would be cap rates calculated by Altus, but they would have used other outside sources as well. But these are cap rates calculated by Altus that was initially presented by Mr. Shalabo Page as well in his first presentation.
Those are my questions, sir. I appreciate your submission. And I guess that we can, for both of you, we can use the rebuttal that was brought forward in the first item of the agenda. And
Yeah.
that
Yes.
Brought forward for both this time also, yes?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, any further final comments on this?
None for me, thank you.
None for me as well. Thank you.
Mr. Abbas, I appreciate your presentation, and if you want to stick around and listen, you can. If not, good day, and thank you very much again.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. I'll take off. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, so this moves us along. Item 3, I believe. That being 355 Sutton Avenue. Mr. Obachinsky, would you please give us your presentation on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is file number 24-3015, roll number 0400163950. The address is 355 Sutton Avenue. Roll year 2025, reference date April 1st, 2023. Assessed value is $8,642,000, classification 20 and liability G. There's 2 buildings, number of stories would be 3. The actual and effective year built is 1972. with a number of suites of 78 and outdoor parking spots of also 78. Due to just some discussions that me and Stephen had, I will be making a verbal recommendation. This would be based on the model NOI and an adjustment of cap rate to 5.8%. This would be bringing us to the assessed value of $8,269,000.
$8,269,000.
Correct.
Thank you. And that's going on your calculations on page number 4, correct?
So there wasn't this is just a verbal recommendation. The page 4 and 5 would be the CMHC
Sorry.
apartment recs.
You have used what NOI again, sir?
So it would be found on page 3. It's the model net operating income of $479,619.
Okay.
And then adjusting the capitalization rate from 5.55% to 5.8%.
5.8. Okay. Mr. Charles, on page. What do you think of the recommendation made this afternoon, sir?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have authorization to accept that offer. And for me, without getting too long into it before my presentation, there's one factor with respect to vacancy in some of the units in the building that I think would require adjustment in my opinion. So I'd like to proceed with our presentations.
Very much. It's not ultimately your client can change his mind down the line, I guess, but what is the position that you're at?
In my report, my reconciliation of value is at $7,222,000.
Thank you very much. Let's go back, Mr. Olmachinski, if you could then conclude your presentation on this.
Yeah.
And then we will move forward from there, please. And
Okay. Thank you. So then we'll go to page 2, just showing that there's no sales history for the subject property. Then on page 3, we have the number of units. So we have 2 one-bedroom units, 56 two-bedroom, and 23 bedroom for a total of 78 units. Then we'll go to page 4. This is the CMHC October 2022 private apartment rents or average rents. So it breaks it down into 3 categories. We have the zone, the year of construction, and then the structure size. And then we use the combined averages of these 3 to get a market CMHC potential rent of $1,326,576 compared to a model rent of $1,055,115 for a percentage of market rents sitting at 79.54%. So our model rents are sitting 20% below the potential rent for CMHC. Then we'll go to page 6. So this is the comparables. The effective year built ranges from 1961 to 1997. The total number of units range from 12 to 118. Number of bachelor, 0 to 11. Number of 1-bedroom, 7 to 68. Number of 2-bedroom, 5 to 37. And I'd like to note that comparable 4 has 2 4-bedroom plus units. This brings us to the average monthly rent per unit ranging from $1,114 to $1,155. The following page 7 is the capitalization rate information with the evidence on page 8 and then the excerpts on 9. And then on page 10, we have a sky photo or aerial photo of the subject property. And this would be sitting on the corner of Sutton and Rothesay. Then there is an additional photo of the exterior of the building. And then on page 11, we just have the Winnipeg Housing and Rehabilitation Corporation for 355 Sutton. And that would be my presentation. I am open for questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Charles Page, do you have questions of the assessor at this point, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So outside of the recommendation you made, could I just confirm that the model presented in the brief is model generated? sorry, the value presented is model generated? I don't know if I said that right.
The value that presented would be,
Sorry, in the brief was model generated. What you presented had a change to cap rate. Is that fair?
yeah, and also
okay.
the market, the estimated market value around it would also be changed as well.
Okay, thank you. So I guess when in these types of properties, and actually this might be a redundant question given the recommendation, but I would just ask, have you considered any specific adjustments to the cap rate to take into account the rent geared to income structure? Is that the reason for the adjustment?
Yes, partially so.
Okay, thank you. So in your opinion, as a valuation professional, you would assign additional risk to the durability of income based on rent subsidies?
I would assign additional risk.
Okay, thank you. Have you had the chance to review interior images of the subject property?
I have not. I wasn't able to find any online. I did not have the time to personally inspect the property.
Okay, sorry. I think some have been exchanged in the past. I don't know how you guys track that from appeal
Okay.
history, but I guess would you agree that in a rent geared to income situation that there'd be an increase in upkeep and a lower quality of finish, certainly in renovating and fixing these assets?
I can't speak to the finish or the lower quality of finish, but I do believe the upkeep would generally, you would generally see it being higher.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, do you have questions?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Deloro, do you have questions?
My question was asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I guess I believe the question has been asked, but I just want to clarify. So long and short, you have adjusted your cap rate based on the fact that CMHC's rents are lower and therefore you feel there's a bit more risk and should have been reflected in the cap rate. Is that the answer, sir?
Yes.
All right. And do you know if the units here at 355 Sutton have been renovated over the course of time?
I wasn't able to be able to find information on that. Just through our permits, just looking through, there wasn't anything that jumped out to me that showed that was work completed.
Okay. And I think you have a picture of the subject here. I'm just looking on your page 11. I just note that there are heat and water is included. It's in the rent. And it says very clearly geared towards income subsidized rental units. So that is what they're looking at, basically. All right. I believe those are my questions. Thank you very much. Mr. Charlebois Page, I would love to hear your presentation on this, sir. So if you could, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a 3-story multifamily building built in 1972. As sort of mentioned there in Cross, we've got a rent geared to income or a subsidized rent situation here. The subject property is comprised of 2 1-beds, 56 2-beds, and 23 bedroom units. Current assessment is $8,642,000 in the residential class. I've set aside again the sales comparison and cost approach and focused in on the income approach on page 13. That begins on page 13 of my brief. These properties that are subsidized rental situations, the actual rents will be far below markets and not fit for study. We are going to agree to the modeled rents, which, as outlined in Mackenzie's brief, are typically adjusted down from market rents to account for sort of a drop in income. So we're not going to dispute the 1,055,115, which is the PGI, I believe the current assessed PGI. So the one thing that is in dispute here, and it'll be the vacancy allowance. And I'd ask the board, sorry, I'm just going to find the page. Apologize. I'd ask everyone to turn to page 13 quickly, and there's a paragraph there titled vacancy allowance. So it's right in the middle, and in discussions with the owner, leading up to this appeal, 19 units were vacant. The owners confirmed that as many as 5 of those units are being worked on. The remaining 14, there was no status update. They will remain vacant as they wait funding to make necessary improvements to bring them to an occupiable standard. And in making an adjustment of this nature, I felt it was appropriate to do it at the vacancy allowance portion. I thought about an adjustment below the line for these units that are, I guess, not at a living standard with insufficient funding to bring them back up to occupiable. But I've made the adjustment in the vacancy allowance portion, and you'll just see at the bottom, 19 units, or as it currently sits, without, as it sits, it's about 24.36% vacant. The line below that, you'll see the in-progress units removed, which I feel is more appropriate for analyzing. Those are obviously planned to come back online, which is 14 units, net of the 5 that are being repaired, for a revised vacancy of 17.95%. You'll note that in my valuation, I've only applied 12%. I do think it's appropriate to consider sort of a stabilized figure of that. I do know this problem has been on since on or before at least 2022. So it's a relevant issue over multiple years. And in my valuations on page 20, you'll see, in terms of the expense allowance at 53.3%, I'm in line. That vacancy, that adjustment for those units, not in an occupiable sort of condition, is there. I'll move forward. My NOI is 433,332. In light of the assessor changing modifying the opinion of capitalization, mine is at 6%. Originally, they were at 5.55. I think we're pretty close there at a less than a quarter point. My sales come from the attached study. I've stratified the range of properties built between 1970 and 1989. The range is 5.5 to 625. I've applied a 5.5 cap rate as the base and adjusted it 0.5 based on rent geared to income. It's a risk to the durability of income, higher expenses. It's there's case law sort of included in my appendix that sort of speaks to these adjustments being consistent with what the board has done in the past, as well as some sort of high level discussions from I'll go into that actually after, but I'll continue onward here. I'll just say I'd like everyone to go to page 23 of my brief. If you could follow me down there, it's the interior photos from my appendix, and just sort of looking there at the sort of patching on the wall with the drywall, and then as you continue down through the photos, you'll just note sort of some of the I guess ending there on page 32, maybe some of the rougher conditions and what they might be facing when they go to remediate some of those units that remain vacant. So that's sort of the logic behind the 6% cap rate I've applied. And before I wrap up here, maybe I'll, sorry, I'm just going to go back up to my appendix here. I have the page number wrong, but I'm just going to pull it up. It is page 40 of my brief. At the bottom, I'll give everyone a chance to get there. There's some highlights. What it is an excerpt from the appraisal journal dated 1996. These assets aren't necessarily always valued for the purposes of assessment in other jurisdictions. So it's nice to have some sort of feedback from a valuation perspective. Just want to note there some of the challenges, and they note some of the added risk factors in terms of the rent geared to income sort of assets. And you'll notice there they say higher expense ratio, low net operating income, and obviously the challenges of remediating those units and the higher costs that come with them. So in saying all of that, my reconciliation of value on page 20, 6 cap applied to the 433,332 NOI. That reconciles in a value of 7,222,000, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Questions at this point? Mr. Olachinsky?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions in regard to the photos. So are these photos of the suites that are currently vacant, or is this just a general idea?
A general idea. These are a mix.
Okay.
I don't have access to those currently.
Okay.
These photos are taken from inspection in 2023, I believe.
Okay, thank you. And I think that would be the extent of my questions. Yeah, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. DeLauro, do you have questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin, go ahead.
Just point of clarification for me. So obviously on this property, I guess our two points of discussion are really the difference in vacancy allowance and then slight cap rate difference, right? That's really the two big discussion points here.
Correct. And just on that note, like I did struggle from the valuation perspective end of this is whether to make that adjustment on the vacancy allowance or as a flat number at the bottom. Because the truth is, if this asset went to market, there's 19 units that currently sit unoccupied at an unoccupiable standard. And that number might go to 14 based on the discussion. And I've stabilized lower than that. I've gone 5% lower than that figure, or 5 or 6% anyway. So yeah, just sort of maybe to simplify it, I would say correct. The capitalization rate, now that the assessor has updated it, we're closer on that issue. The units that are an unoccupiable standard, whether you treat them as a vacancy allowance issue or as a flat adjustment, that'd be primarily the issue there.
Thank you. No other questions.
Okay. I guess you're not disagreeing that this is a well-located, situated property, sir?
Correct. And I think that'd be consistent with sort of, well, first the year built compared to other rent geared to income assets as neighborhoods are built through the city. And then also, this would be in the lower end of the range for some of the rent geared to income properties that I've valued.
Okay. But at the end of the day, as you answered to Mr. Carlin, the argument is not with respect to the potential gross rents that are on the property, but to the vacancy thereof. And some of that you've already addressed, I guess, in the higher cap rate. And I'm guessing you're going to suggest or suggesting that because this is a low income rental type of scenario, that the owner or owners of these types of properties are less motivated to upgrade them. Is that a fair statement, sir?
I don't know if I'd say less motivated or less able.
And that's an important distinction too.
Yeah, and I think that the reality is our like given the task of applying a market value of April 1st, 2023 for what an arm's length knowledgeable buyer would pay in the marketplace, they would contemplate both the durability of income long term of rent geared to income stream, and also the current condition of those units. Perhaps some overlap, but both would be contemplated as individual issues, in my opinion.
Okay. Now, if I can, Mr. Olszynski, I'm gonna ask you a question. Were you aware of the vacancy problem that they were having here, sir?
No, I was not aware of the vacancy issue.
Okay, would that change your view on this, sir?
I still would go with the current cap rate that I have applied.
Would it change your vacancy allowance on it, sir? Because, I mean, obviously, 16 or 17 or 18% on the 14 apartments, even if that was the case, still a fairly significant amount of vacancy.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it appears from the comments that Mr. Charlotte Page made is that this has been a bit of an ongoing issue over the last few years.
Yeah, so it would affect the vacancy percentage. Typically when we're looking at the subsidized properties where we try to go with the model generally. But yeah, if it hasn't been an ongoing issue, then it would affect the vacancy percentage that I would have used.
Okay, that's fair. I appreciate the your candor on that. Thank you. I believe those are my questions, gentlemen. And is there any summation on either part, gentlemen?
No summation for me, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just briefly state that I think with the assessor coming closer on the cap rate, I would just ask the board to recognize those units at an unoccupiable standard, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your submission on this, gentlemen, both of them. Thank you. Let's continue on. And then we are going on to item number 4. Oh, sorry. My apologies. Item number 5. That being 696 Kildare Avenue East. Mr. Omnetsky, would you like to give us your presentation on that, sir?
Yes, thank you. This is file number 24-2742, rule number 0900128500. The address is 696 Kildare Avenue East. Roll year 2025, reference date April 1st, 2023. The assessed value we have currently at $5,160,000. The classification 20 and liability T. There is one building with 2 stories. The actual and effective year built is 1969. There's 45 suites with 45 outdoor parking spots. I do have a recommendation on this property. This is based on the stabilization found on page 4, adjusting the assessed value to $5,062,000 rounded. So if you guys can follow me to page 4, there's just a chart with the stabilization and a net operating income of $280,960 with an adjustment to the capitalization rate from 6.3% to 5.55% to get a estimated property value of $5,062,334.
All right. Did you modify your NOI, or are you using the existing NOI to the valuation, sir?
This would be a modified NOI. So the stabilization is found on page 4.
Okay. And Mr. Shalaba Page. Thoughts?
So I guess just to keep things consistent here, there'll be a number of these on this docket that Mackenzie and I have had the chance to discuss prior. I do not have direction on the offer, but I do note that there is a pretty substantial capitalization rate adjustment made by the assessment authority in this case. So there's both a substantial would say PGI or expense adjustment made on several of these properties, including the subject property, but offset by a pretty substantial capitalization rate adjustment downward. I believe this one's 6.3 going down to 555. So I'd like to proceed with presentations on this one and the couple coming up that'll have similar circumstances.
We are just trying to see if the waters are to your liking or not, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Albertson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go to page 3. We have a number of units. We have 21 one-bedroom units, 18 two-bedroom, and 6 three-bedroom for a total of 45 units. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,160.64. The gross potential rent would be, that won't be necessary just because of my recommendation. So we'll go down to page 5 for the rent comparables. So we have an effective year built range for these comparables of 1961 to 1974. Total number of units ranging from 11 to 65. Number of one bedroom 0 to 32. Number of two bedroom 11 to 33. And there is no 3-bedroom units for my comparables, unfortunately. The average monthly rent for these comparables per unit would be $969 to $1,199. Page 6 is the capitalization rate information, followed by the evidence on 7 and the excerpts on 8. And then we have on page 9 just the aerial photo. You can see that it's situated on the corner of Kildare and Wood Lake with an exterior photo on page 9 as well, followed by some interior photos of the property on 10 and 11. These are the only ones that I would be able to find. And then on page 12, we have the statement of earnings. And then 13 is the gross potential rent roll. And that would be my presentation. I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Shalaba Page?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few. Start on page 4. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this workup and looking through the 2020 to 2022 income and expense. Just a quick question there on line item. I'm gonna have to zoom in here. 123, 124, the vacancy. You've sort of highlighted a 6 to 8% vacancy over the 3 years there, but you've applied the modeled 2.6. Do you think that's consistent with the rest of the approach you've taken?
I decided to do the modeled just to be I guess it wouldn't be consistent with the rest of my approach, but I do believe that the model vacancy would be appropriate because I don't know just from the maintenance and repair being really high in previous years. I don't know if they were vacant because they couldn't find people to move in, or if they were vacant because there was construction being completed.
Sure, thank you. I think the shakedown of, again, your revised NOI and mine are not dissimilar, but just wanted to note that from a pure evaluation standpoint. Obviously, a big difference here is you've decided to modify the assessed cap rate from the modeled cap rate from 6.30% to 5.55%. Could you just sort of direct me to where that comes from? Like what evidence in this brief would you rely on the chart on page 7 of your brief for that, or where did you come up with that figure, if you don't mind?
So it would be based on the information provided by the 2 brokers, where this is a property that is masonry build, and I believe that it falls kind of in the middle range, middle to a bit slightly higher range of low-rise multifamily properties. And that would be my reasoning or my basis of adjusting the cap rate. And also to be in conjunction with the other capitalization rates that are found on this docket for the other Kildare properties. That would be the extent there.
Okay, so it's a mix sort of just of like appraisal theory from yourself, like subjective appraisal theory and the brokerage reports. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I'll just confirm because that was a fairly lengthy answer to a long question, but the stuff on page 7 was not considered in this decision making. Is that fair? The sales?
In this particular property, it was not.
Okay, thank you. Those conclude my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, do you have questions for the assessor?
The actual and effective build dates on this building are 1969. Has there been any upgrades that you're aware of? The
None that I
photos look pretty
can.
good.
Yeah, none that I could speak to with certainty, but when you're looking at just the photos that I could find of the interior, it looks like it. Not necessarily sure if there's been extensive updates, but yeah, I couldn't speak to any particular updates, I suppose.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Del Oro, do you have questions?
Just in respect to the photos again, you haven't inspected this property, so you're just basing the quality or the standard it is in based on photos that you have. You don't know when those are taken?
Yeah, I wasn't able to inspect the property myself, so these are the photos
Okay,
taken on the internet.
thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you very much. I guess I'll state the obvious thing that I've been kind of thumping for a while is maybe it's time for an inspection on this property.
Yeah.
By the city, because it appears that potentially anyway, that there have been some renovation done. I don't know if that's true or not, based on what I see, but potential anyway.
Yeah.
Did you because you basically reduced your cap rate from 6.3% down to 5.5% for the revised valuation, correct?
Correct.
And you felt that the 6.3 was too great of a move for this particular property based on what you were looking at on the rest of the docket, correct?
Correct. Yeah, for the following 3 properties, I felt that the model capitalization rate was quite high.
Okay, and then you recognize that, and I believe you said that you chose not to recognize the additional vacancy potential that there appears to be on this property, correct?
Correct.
In hindsight, do you think maybe you should have, sir?
I don't. I think I will stick by going with the model vacancy just because of the maintenance and repair amounts being almost 2.5 grand. Sorry, $2,400 per unit. That the part of the vacancy rate could be due to when people are moving out, that they have repairs done to the building. Although I guess I cannot substantiate that because there's no permits taken out. I just have the few photos in the brief here.
Okay. Those, I believe, are my questions. I do appreciate your submission. Mr. Shawabah Page, you have if we have your submission at this point, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a 2-story multifamily building built in 1969. It's comprised of 21 1-bed units, 18 2 and 6 3-beds. Current assessment is 5.160 in the residential class. Focusing on the income approach, page 12 of my report. I'll just focus in on my stuff because obviously some of the modeled stuff has been changed through the assessor's, I guess, the value included in his report. So I'll just state my PGI is 622,861 or 1,153 per unit. I have a 7% vacancy, which is the 3-year stabilized average vacancy rate. Expense allowance, 323,152 based on 53% there, I believe, which is again my stabilized income and expense breakdown, page 15. My NOI, it is 278,713, and I reviewed cap rates similar to the last few properties and stratified it within our range. So if you'll look on page 13, you'll see that this property here is going to fall into that range of 5.75 to 6.5. In this case, I've applied a 6.25, not at the top, right in the middle of that sort of block between that age bracket. And for me, that's what I feel to be an appropriate rate. And that, sorry, I'm just going down to my value here. On page 15, you can see my reconciliation of value at 4,459,000 rounded downward. I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alensky, would you like to ask questions at this point?
I guess, yeah, it would, sorry, I'm just looking at page 13 here, and it says the overall capitalization rate being 5.5.
I'm looking at that chart too, Mackenzie, and I'm going to go ahead and say that is administrative error by myself.
Okay.
I put in the wrong chart and I apologize. It was 6.25 considered from that range of 5.75 to 6.50. So I'd like to apologize for that. Yes, my apologies.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry, that was just the only thing.
Nope, that is a discrepancy and I do apologize. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. All right, well, that would be the extent of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Ms. Delora?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Carlin, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
And again, it appears, gentlemen, that your NOI, Mr. Charlotte Page, is 278,713,000 or $278,713 versus the city's NOI of 289,660. This is his revised number, of course.
Correct.
So you are, for all intents and purposes, almost identical there.
Sure.
So really, at the end of the day, there are two issues. Well, it's funny, vacancy was kind of an issue, but the NOIs don't bear that out at the end of the day. So really it comes down to an issue of cap rate again.
I would agree that the revised value provided by the assessor is obviously brings us to an NOI. Whatever inputs are disputed or different, the minutia is shaken out in that NOI. There's not much of a gap. It'd just be the almost full point adjustment on cap. Just a subjective adjustment that leaves us sort of in the gap.
No, forgive me, I'm Mr. Page, Charlotte Page. I'm looking at your cap rate at 6.25, and I'm wondering why you feel it needs to be as soft as that. I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Qualify a little bit further.
Yeah.
When I look at some of the other properties that we've already seen on this docket, we're all talking about properties built in that type of era. This one in particular has a suite and parking stall of 1-to-1. It's not in a bad area. And so I'd love your comments on the cap rate, please.
For sure. So I guess in the Alta study, our range there, 6 sales on the attached study, the range is between 5.26% to 7.11%. The model identified a 6.3% cap for this property. If I had to speculate, it would likely be due to a very suburban location. I'm not going to go ahead and say it's a poor location. I would agree with your assessment of average. Stratifying within my range of that time period or that age period for these assets, 5.75 to 6.5%. Perhaps it could have been at a 6. I've applied a 6.25. Again, lower than the current assessed cap. I would agree with you that perhaps that was aggressive, and I've come down sort of just 0.05%, but acknowledging that, that would be at the higher end of that age gap.
Okay.
So yeah, in saying that, again, just looking at the sales in the study we have and stratifying it into that, came out with my number at 625.
Fair enough. I appreciate your comments, sir. Again, just looking at it from the perspective I'm trying to look at it from. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Those are my questions. Is there any further summation on either part, gentlemen?
No summation needed for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
None for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Let's move on.
Would I be able to request just a brief recess, about 5 minutes?
I was wondering if you were going to ask. That would be fine. If we take a 5-minute break right now, that would probably be good for everybody.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and welcome back, everyone. We are at item number 6 on our docket today. That being 704 Kildare Avenue East. Mr. Olmachinsky, could we hear from you on this, please, sir?
Yes, thank you. So this is file number 24-3410. Roll number is 090013000500. The address is 704 Kildare Avenue East. Roll year 2025. Reference date April 1st, 2023. Assessed value being at $7,082,000. Classification 20, liability T. There is one building with 2 stories. The actual and effective year built is 1969, with a total of 65 suites and 65 outdoor parking spots. I do have a recommendation for this as well, based on the stabilization found on page 4, reducing the assessed value to $6,014,000 rounded. So I'll take you guys to page 4, and this is just a breakdown of the stabilization. I decided to disclude the 2020 professional fees and advertising, just based on that they were either 4 times higher than the following years, between 4 to 3 times higher in the following years. And I also adjusted the model cap rate from 6.4% to 5.6%. And use the net operating income of the stabilized property to $336,759 to come to the estimated property value of $6,013,559.
Mr. Charles Page, do you have any interest at the revised recommendation, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I again do not have authorization. It'll be the same as the last property on Kildare. Actually on this one, I believe the NOI I'm seeking would be lower. I'm not substantial again, but again, a pretty substantial cap rate adjustment to the modeled cap of 0.80, and I would like to proceed.
No problem. Thank you very much. Continue on, Mr. Olmachinsky. That would be great.
Yeah, for sure. This is the one thing that I would mention with the stabilization as well, is that there isn't anything for the vacancy. And that's just because on the reported I&E that you can find on page 13, that there is, sorry, 12 and 13, that there is reported 0 vacancy. So that would be the reason for that. And then I'll take you guys back up to page 2, just to state that there had been a sale in February 3rd, 2010 for 3,875,000. And then we'll go to page 3 for the number of unit breakdown, which is 35 1-bedroom and 32 bedroom for a total of 65 units. Then we can go to page 5 with the rent comparables. So the effective year built for the comparables range from 1961 to 1974. The total number of units range from 11 to 30. Number of bachelor 0 to 5, 1-bedroom 0 to 1, 2-bedroom 11 to 25, and the average monthly rent per unit being $987 to $1,199. Page 6 is the cap rate information, followed by the evidence on 7, and then 8 we have the Municipal Assessment Act. And then on page 9 we have an aerial photo of the property. Neighbors, sorry, it's just on the corner of Kildare and Wood Lake as well. And then below that is just a street photo of the property. And then we have some in-suite photos from page 10 to 11. And on 12 to 13 is the INE property income and expense questionnaire. And that would be my presentation. I am open for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Charlotte Page?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you did note there's no PGIs recorded, so we're effectively working with an EGI to start, right? An effective gross rent. I did note a little bit of a discrepancy in sort of your review of the subject property and the 2020 to 2022 income and expense. I sort of see, and maybe you touched on this a little bit with the professional fees. So I see a range of 58% to 61%. I guess, sorry, you've done some stabilization, so you have it at 53% for 2022. Does it concern you that the property, is operating there, like let's call it as an average of 57 or 58% of the EGI in expenses over that 3-year period? Does it concern you to apply a 53% given the actual performance?
It doesn't bring me concern, no.
Okay. So again, in saying that, the NOI, having looked at it there, I have the 2022 NOI at 294,897, a little bit different than yours. I think that might have to do with some adjustments made, but that's fine. I'm just looking here at the NOI from 2020, 2021, 264,000 and 304,000. Your revised value is using 336,000. Is that, do you think that could be high given the performance of those 2 years minus the adjustments?
Yeah, it could be seen as high. And I think that, yeah, that does come from, like you mentioned, the admission of 2020's professional fees and advertising.
Okay. So again, I just ask, the adjustment to the cap rate is substantial here again, over 3/4 of a point, 0.80%, I believe, down from 6.4. Is it safe to assume the answer from the last property to apply here, this is appraisal theory mixed with a review of the brokerage range? Is that sort of where you came in at?
Yeah, it'd be the similar or same response as the previous property, and also and to be to be similar to the other properties on this docket. We're in similar area.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Belloro, do you have questions of the assessor?
Can you just, maybe you've mentioned this, but can you just clarify again the 6.3 model cap and then the 5.6 adjusted? Can you just flesh that out for me a little bit?
Yeah. So the 5.6 capitalization rate comes from just reviewing the The two Colliers and Cushman and Wakefield, their high and lows being between 5 and 6%. 5 and 6 for Colliers, and then 4.75 to 5.5. 5.75. I apologize for the low rise. And then also partially because I just felt that, the cap rate was too high in comparison to other similar properties that are even on this docket. And that would be, I believe, the extent of why the reason for that adjustment. Yes, yeah.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Laurel?
Yes, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, do you have questions of the assessor?
Yes, similar to the previous property, it's listed as an actual build and effective year build of 1969. That does seem a little inconsistent with the photos. Are there any permits or anything that have come out on this?
Not that I was able to find, just listed on for City of Winnipeg information. Nothing that would be stating any work completed, but yeah, it does seem like there's been at bare minimum some upkeep done to the suite.
Can I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chair, not to cut you off if you're
Absolutely, go ahead.
So for this one and the last one, would you agree that these look like listing photos, like Photoshopped listing photos? These are found on Google, right?
These would be found, off of Google website.
So these are for advertisement. Maybe touched up or brightened. Likely they're staged for photos, for advertisement. They're done for advertising, right? They're done for the purposes of making it look its best. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And in regards to these effective ages, like in both images for both properties, is it fair to say that I see radiator heating for both?
Yes, yeah, I can see.
So I think maybe could I just suggest that maybe there's a bit of a stark difference between maybe aesthetic upgrades and sort of structure and utility from that original age, and that's more just a comment on the end of that line of questioning. So thank you.
Oh, that sounds fair. Thank you.
Sorry, and then Mr. Carlin, go ahead if you have.
And then one other question, just looking at the aerial view here, this property is right next door to our previous one, like right across the cross street.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be.
Thank you. Those are my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm good in respect to the questions that have asked and answered at this point. So, Mr. Charles Page, I believe you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will try and keep this fast as we are going to be hearing three very similar properties in a row. So I three very similar issues. So, okay, 2.5-story multifamily building built in 1969, 35 one bed, 32 bed. Current assessment, $7,082,000. Consistent approach for me on page 16 of my brief. If you'll look, it's stabilization of 2020 to 2022. And sort of just looking here, as noted by the assessor, there's no vacancy and there's no PGI here. They report the effective gross rent, which just means that they've already considered vacancy in the number reported. So you don't make it a market vacancy adjustment in this case. The number they've reported is the EGI. I looked across there. I've used the highest of the three, and that's consistent with our approach. You'll see 2022 is the highest. Rents are obviously on the incline, and expenses will match that sort of line of increase. Going down there, you can see my net operating income is $318,368. The figures reported in the city assessment obviously would be not relevant to the value Mackenzie presented today. That's the current assessment as it stands on the property. Still a bit of a difference here between myself and the assessor. I'm at 318,368. You'll see my stabilized NOI from the past 3 years averaging out at 285,989. I think I've been conservative in my approach. So again, my NOI 318,368. I've applied a 6.25% cap rate in this case. The model had it at 6.4. I came down, almost a quarter point there. Again, as discussed on the previous property, Mr. Chair, maybe you alluded to this a bit. I looked at the range of 5.75 to 6.5, and maybe perhaps I would state that it could be at a 6 as well, given that range. It is an older building. The utilities don't look like they've been upgraded, and perhaps there are some aesthetic updates. So, 6.25 cap rate range for me, based on the sales we reviewed and sort of the range I'm looking at. My proposed revised value is $5,094,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mr. Olachinski, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin, do you have any questions, sir?
No, thank you.
And Ms. Bell Oro, do you have questions?
And I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that other than the fact that you have your expenses are a bit by about 10%. Sorry, I may have misspoken there, not 10%, but your difference in your.
It's he's using 385,639 as an expense adjustment.
Yeah,
I'm using 405,220. So
He's at 53% now, and you are.
Well, the percentage will change. Oh no, the percentage won't change because we're using a similar effective gross income, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I think you're at 56%, and he ultimately has come down to, or gone up to, I should say, 53%.
For sure. About 18,000 on the NOI though, so not nothing in terms of the differential there.
No, but I will note, I mean, in some of the expenses that you have allowed, and case in point, advertising and leasing, the highest point was the oldest year, and the 2 subsequent years were much lower. And you've ended up with a value of $11,086 on that. And then same problem with the professional fees. The oldest year you were at $12,316, and you averaged out at $6,648, which is $2,000 to $3,000 greater than the final 2 years of the income expenses. And I guess this is how you've looked at your valuation of the expenses, that you've accepted the averages more often than not.
Correct.
Not really made an adjustment, maybe because of a heavier year for whatever reason.
Yeah, and what I'd say is this is in our expense review, you'll note that it's not to be cherry picking. If you look at the utilities, it's up at 89,000. We use it because it's the highest. But then also on my revenue line, I would note that I've used 697, 602, where the 3-year average would be 678, 864 for an EGI. And I just want to note that there is some consistency there in terms of that approach. And to be blunt, when we do see those, or in my opinion, when I see those sort of increase in professional fees and maybe advertising, we assess these assets at their market rent, and these owners have to spend money to attract tenants and maintain their asset. And to assign those a nominal or remove them from the equation, I think smoothing them out with the average is the correct approach. I think we've talked about stabilizing earlier on this call, sort of in terms of the assessor talking about it from a cap rate approach, but there's also something to be done on in terms of the expense allowance. So in terms of those don't look like outlier, like complete outliers in terms of the percent. It's less than a percentage of the EGI is what
Yeah.
that professional fee.
And certainly there is something to the idea of being consistent all across the board. I understand that. So I do thank you for that. Much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Thank you.
I think that should conclude my question at this point. So any summation from either party, gentlemen?
No summation needed, thank you.
No thanks on my end either. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes item number 6. And staying in the very close proximity again, we are now moving on to item number 7. This being 708 Kildare, so this is right next door to the previous property, so. Mr. Olashinsky, can we have your presentation on this, please, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is file number 24-3411, roll number 0900130250. Address is 708 Kildare Avenue East, roll year 2025, reference date April 1st, 2023. Assessed value is currently at $7,121,000, classification 20, liability T. Number of buildings, 1 with 2 stories, the actual and effective year built being 1969. The number of suites being 65 with 65 outdoor parking spots. The recommendation being made for this property based on the stabilization found on page 4, reducing the assessed value to $6,237,000 rounded. I'll get you guys everyone to follow me to page 4. So this is the income and expense. Again, it was just there was no vacancy reported. So we have net after stabilization and also discluding the advertising and professional fees from 2020. We are going to get come to a net operating income of $349,297 with reducing the capitalization rate from 6.4 to 5.6%. To an estimated property value of $6,237,554.
Okay, now quickly, is this the twin to the one we just heard?
I
Are they
believe
identical or virtually identical?
I believe virtually identical. Yes.
Same suites, same number of stalls, built same year. Are the sizes the same, sir?
Let me quickly double check. Sorry, I just had that other brief closed. So the unit breakdown is slightly different. We have 3 additional 2-bedroom and 2 less 1-bedroom for the current property. So and
different makeup of the suites then.
Yes, yeah.
And that would account for the slight difference in the valuation overall.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Sorry to cut everybody off on that, but questions, Mr. Charles Page?
It's eerily similar to the prior one. I would just my NOI will actually be calculated slightly higher than Mr. Omachinsky's revised, and again, my concern would be with the over 3/4 point. Sorry, 3/4 of a point cap rate adjustment. So
Fair enough.
And I would like to proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Questions, Ms. Del Oro?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin, any questions?
Nope, no questions. Thank you.
And I already asked mine. Without a turn. All right. So, Mr. Charlebois Page, would you like to walk through your presentation, sir?
Oh, was Mackenzie done? Sorry.
I believe he was. Am I mistaken?
I didn't know if he just took us through his offer or if it was, that was.
I
that's
did,
telling.
yeah,
Oh,
I did just go
sorry.
to the offer. I can read the rest of it out, but yeah, it
Oh, my
is.
apologies. I thought you were done, sir.
Oh, no, sorry. I just took us to the offer and then,
Let me rewind that then and I don't mean to cut you off, so please speak up if I'm cutting you off.
sounds good. Yeah, no worries at all. I just thought maybe because the properties were so similar that we.
Yeah, it kind of, I just wanted to understand, and so I do appreciate the fact that the suite makeup is a little bit different. All of the things pretty much equal, but that's also something we can figure out. So please, if there's something else that you need to go over, by all means, this is the moment to do it, sir.
Okay, yeah, so I already went over the suite makeup, and I would just go down to page 9, 10, 11, just to show that with this property, we do actually have some photos of how the suites are broken down. And that would really be the extent. There's nothing more to add, so thank you, but I am open for questions.
Let's rewind again, Mr. Showboat Page. Questions for the assessor? Sorry.
It will be eerily similar to the previous. I'll just say thank you for taking the time to review this asset. I appreciate your work there on your revised value. For the record, could I just get you to confirm again? We got we got exactly a 0.80% cap rate adjustment by yourself from 6.4, I believe in this case, to 5.6. I believe you stated the basis that you made this adjustment was a subjective sort of appraiser opinion and the broker cap rate range. Could I just confirm that with you?
Yeah, being on, partially the broker cap rate range, partially just it being in line with the other properties that are on this docket, and also, appraiser opinion additionally.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
All right. Thank you again, much appreciated. Sorry, Ms. Deloro, I'm gonna come back to you. I hope you, if you do have questions, this would be a moment, so please go ahead.
No, thank you. I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and I appreciate your patience. Mr. Carlin, I'm guessing you are up next, so please.
No questions on my end. Thank you.
And I have no questions either. So gentlemen, please, and thank you for that. Mr. Charlebois Page, can we have your presentation on this property, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this value is a 2-story multifamily, again, built in 1969. Current assessment, $7,121,000. Did the income approach consistent with the last two? Page 15 has the breakdown, sort of the inputs. The methodology would be the same. Prioritizing expenses that would and revenues that fluctuate upward. Obviously, there's increases to cost of living as we all experience heading into the valuation date. And my revised NOI there is 372,441. My cap rate, again, I've come down from the modeled cap rate of 6.4 to a 6.25. My range for this asset, again, is between 5.75 and 6.5. Again, all things said on this call, perhaps it could have been at a 6 or a 6.25. I don't disagree with that. Again, that's coming from my cap rate study attached with a 5.26 to a 7.11 sort of range. My proposed revised value there is 5,959,000 rounded downward. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Just making sure that I've got everything in this time. Mr. Owachinsky, do you have any questions of Mr. Charlebois Page?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Carlin, do you have questions?
No questions. Thank you very much.
And Ms. Del Oro, do you have questions?
No, I have no questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and I believe I'm good at this point, so thank you very much, gentlemen, both. Any final summation on this one, or are we good?
I'm okay, thank you.
No, thank you on my end, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, both of you. Appreciate your submissions on both. From both, I should say. All right, so we are actually leaving the area of Transcona. And we are going to 114 McGregor Street. So, Mr. Olachinsky, could you give us your presentation on this one? This is different than the whole rest of the docket in that respect.
Yes, yeah, I would be happy to. Thank you. This is file number 24-2835, roll number 14002408500. The address is 114 McGregor Street. Roll year 2025, reference date April 1st, 2023. Assessed value is at $5,502,000. Classification 20, liability G. There is one building with 8 stories. The actual and effective year built is 1977. We're looking at 121 suites with 21 outdoor parking spots. On page 2, there's no sales history for the subject property. Page 3, we just have a number of unit breakdown here. So we have 79 bachelor units, 41 one-bedroom, and 1 two-bedroom for a total of 121 units. We're looking at an average monthly rent per unit of $594.67. The gross potential rent is $863,461. The vacancy rate is at 3.3%. The effective gross income would be $834,967. The expense rate we have at 54.2%. The NOI or net operating income would be $382,415. Capitalization rate we have at 6.95%. The estimated market value rounded would be $5,502,000, with the market value per suite only at $45,471.07. On page 4 here, we just have that similar breakdown to the previous 355 Sutton. So this is the CMHC average rents breakdown into 3 categories. So we have the zone, the year, and the building count broken into an average of $875.89 monthly. And then we have the market CMHC potential rents. That would bring us to $1,271,788 with a modeled rent of $863,461, which gives us 67.89% of market rents. And then on page 6, we just have the rent comparables. So the effective year built ranges from 1959 to 1973. Total number of units ranges from 9 to 169. Bachelor would be 0 to 140. Number of one bedroom would be 2 to 29, and number of two bedroom would be 0 to 15. The average monthly rent per unit ranges from $712 to $813. Or sorry, I apologize. It actually ranges from $665 to $813. On the following page, we have the capitalization rate information, followed by the evidence on 8, and then the excerpts on 9. And then on 10, we just have a aerial photo of the property. It's on McGregor, between Stella and Flora. There is an exterior photo of the property. I wasn't able to find interior photos. And then on page 11 is just showing the senior housing or mixed housing for the property information there. And that would be my presentation. I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shalom Page, do you have questions of the assessor at this point?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll just confirm with you the value presented today is model generated.
Yes, it is.
So again, this is similar to Sutton. It's rent geared to income here. Would you agree that, I guess again, would you agree that these assets typically run at a higher than typical expense ratio?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Yes, I would agree.
Okay. So based on my review, the 2022 actual expense ratio is upward of 89% of the EGI. Do you think that the current 54.2% is reflective of a number up in the range?
We go with the modeled expense rate just because it would be going with the current highest and best use for the property. As modeled, it wouldn't be run as a subsidized housing. So I would stick with the 54.2% expense rate.
But no highest and best use analysis was done, right? Like there's no sort of a macroeconomic study done to see, because like, I mean, obviously, you know, low income housing or rent geared income housing, you know, in an ideal scenario, every owner would make the maximum market rent dollar from their property. But the truth is, from our society, we have people of, you know, different certain socioeconomic backgrounds, different circumstances, illness, all that. So would you kind of agree that, you know, our society is in necessity of this type of asset?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I would agree.
Okay, so just sorry, on a highest and best use, I don't disagree, but ultimately, without sort of like that macroeconomic look at whether this asset could be removed and all of those people still serviced within the community, you know, I wouldn't be able to anyway. Thank you. Those are my questions. And oh, actually, I do have one more. Sorry, before we move on. On this docket, we've seen sort of a range of caps now between 5% and almost 7% here on this one. Would you agree that that's sort of the range for the models spitting out for these properties here on today's call? Like this one at the high end, obviously, with the 6.95%. Do you think, in contrast to a property like Sutton, what would you think that the model's contemplating between those two assets?
I wouldn't know for sure. I know that this is, like the chairman had mentioned, that this is a completely new area now. I know that the number of units is considerably higher, like almost, I think 2/3 higher than Sutton.
Sure.
And then I wouldn't know otherwise, other than those two are like the most prominent that jump out at me for the difference in cap rate. I would even think that this cap rate would be considered high. I just haven't seen a cap rate as high as, or as close to 7% as this in previous dockets I've completed.
I would tend to agree. It looks like this cap rate's been adjusted for maybe the rent geared to income, where some of them haven't. And I don't want to speculate too much, but some of the other rent geared to income housing I've done have had some substantially low cap rates, and this one I found, you know, reflective of the top end of the range. So anyway, just curious about your perspective on the model, and that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Del Oro, do you have questions of the assessor?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Carlin, do you have questions?
No questions. Thank you.
All right. I guess the only question that I'm going to ask, with respect to the location of this being basically on, well, at the beginning of McGregor Street, the north end of Winnipeg, in a challenged area, is maybe the best way to put it. Do you think that that's probably why the cap rate is as high as it is at this point?
I would imagine so. I believe that that's what the model would be taking into account.
And of course, it would be looking at other similar apartments in the general area. And I know that there are multiple scenarios like this through the north end. Is that not true?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up on that, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely, sir. What would you like to ask?
Sorry, it was my understanding that the model maybe didn't differentiate the rent geared to income as a baseline input. Mackenzie, is that an incorrect statement?
I would not know for certain. I just know that I wouldn't know if it's based on the If it was subsidized housing, I know that would be based on area.
So like, sorry, in terms of just what Mr. Chair asked you, like I guess it'd be stratified in the lower quality within this economic neighborhood. Is that a fair point? Is that sort of what it would be?
Sorry, sorry, if you could explain that.
Yeah, sorry.
Just to
So
explain
this property would be stratified against the lower quality assets in that immediate vicinity is sort of what your takeaway was, and maybe not specifically adjusted for rent geared to income.
Yes, yeah, sorry, yes. that would be-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So that we're clear, it appears that certainly location does have something to do with it, and I appreciate the additional comment, Mr. Charlebois Page, with respect to the fact that it is low-income housing, and does that, coupled with the location, equate to the higher cap rate that the department has put on it? And it appears, forgive me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, sir, but that appears to be the case. Is that not it?
I'm not sure because I don't personally work in modeling, so I don't know the exact ins and outs. So I don't necessarily want to speak to it, but that's how it would appear to me currently.
As an example, this location versus Sutton, even as a straight up comparison, would you not agree Sutton is in a nicer area in general as
Yeah.
opposed to the North End? And again, no slight to the North End. It just is what it is. So you'd agree with me that certainly it's in a rougher area, and it's catering to people that would be in that socioeconomic range, correct?
Yes, yes, it would.
All right. I also note that the difference in monthly rent is approximately 32%. Than CMHC's potential rent. So that kind of bears out what I think we're talking about here, correct?
Yeah. Yes, it would.
Fair enough. Okay, those are my questions, and I appreciate your answering as best as you can on your information that you have available to you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Charlebois Page, I believe you're up, my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've got 8-story multifamily building built in 1977, 79 bachelor units, 41 one-bed, and 1 2-bedroom unit. Current assessment is 5.502 in the residential class. Again, income approach on this. I'm not going to dispute the rents on these rent geared to income properties. Any reported incomes that we get are often far below market there. You can see on page 20 of my brief, you'll see the 2022 reported was 606. So we've gone with the 834,967 EGI as currently assessed. Which is an adjustment from the market rents, which is not atypical when you're doing rent geared to income assets. We again applied the market vacancy. Expenses are an issue, and sort of on my end here, in reviewing the actual expenses, they're obviously far in excess of the normal range. I've sort of put that down to 64%, and where I'm seeing that figure is in sort of my subjective opinion of the top end of multifamily assets and where the north end of the range is for expense allowance. So obviously the actual performance at 89%, I don't think stabilized, but I do, however, think that this asset would be performing in the bottom end of the range for multifamily assets. So again, I've used that 64%. My revised reconciled net operating income would be 300,000 and 200. And I've applied a 6.75 cap in this case. Again, my range here from 1970 to 1989 in my attached study is 5.5 to 6.25. I've applied the bottom or the top end of that, I guess, acknowledging locational issues and, certainly some of the things we've discussed, challenges that face the neighborhood. Not to speculate on the finishings, but obviously with the expenses and some of the just other similar assets, I would I guess speculate that the condition is not good or above. That being said, I've applied a 0.5% adjustment for rent geared to income. Obviously, the durability of income takes a hit. In my opinion, investors would know that there would be substantial costs and concerns in taking an asset like this and making it market. One of those being that the community needs this to function. So with all that said, my value reconciled is 4,447,000 rounded downward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Owachynski, please.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, do you have questions at this time?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Deloro, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And again, you're basically differing on expenses and slightly on cap rate again.
And in this case, I'm lower than the assessors
cap rate
and the
is in
model
fact
cap. Yeah,
Lower than the assessors in this one.
for sure. And I'll just note on that, just to be consistent with my ranges and sort of highlighting within those ranges that this would be in a poor location and making a location adjustment. But yeah, so sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't disagree with that comment, sir. All right. I think that's the sum total of my questions. Gentlemen, do either one of you have any final summation on this property?
I don't need any. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I maybe just touch on it quickly just to say that, we've got the model ranging caps on this docket between 5 and 7%. I know we have a wide variety of assets in a couple different locations. It'd be my opinion that, making 1 point or 0.80 cap adjustments subjectively, without sort of the material data to support that, I don't think that'd be consistent with what I've seen in terms of supporting revised capitalization rates. So I'd ask the board to consider that in their weighting of the evidence and the properties they've heard before them today. And thank you for everyone's time.
Much appreciated for your summation. So at this point, I believe we've heard all items scheduled. And this hearing is now adjourned. So I thank you both for your submissions today and your patience in getting through all of this. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Buddy. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
you too.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll go and take us offline.
Please.
Excuse me.